Let me read to you a passage from the 9th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 9 to 13. It's the Gospel for Friday of the 13th week in Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, "As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. 'Follow me,' he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, 'Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?' On hearing this, Jesus said, 'It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners.'" That's from Matthew chapter 9, verse 9 to 13. It suggests thoughts about God as a God of mercy. You know, there are two things which modern secular man, the man who tends to think that this world is all that there is, has a hard time realizing. The first is that there is a holy and moral God, and the second is that there is not merely wrongdoing but sin. While a practical atheism is now, I believe, fairly common because of indifference towards religion, it is, however, also fairly common for one who is scarcely religious to believe in a distant higher power. I remember watching some episodes of the TV series shown in the 1980s entitled Cold Warrior. The lead character was asked if he believed in God. He believed, he said, in a higher power. At that time, out-and-out atheism was hardly respectable, but out-and-out personal religion, in which God was a heartfelt reality, was hardly respectable either. He was a distant power to whom one did not have recourse in one's independent living of a moral life. Moral, that is, in certain respects, but not in others. Many philosophers of the modern era have been well known for their atheism, such as Professor Anthony Flew. Flew then became well known for his conversion to theism. But it was an intellectual conversion to an architect of the universe that accounted for the order and system he had long noticed in the basic components of life. It certainly did not lead to any acceptance of revelation, and he hastened to insist that it made no practical difference to life. The book, The Mind of God, The Scientific Basis for a Rational World, published in 1992 by Paul Davies, offered a tour and explanation of theories, both physical and metaphysical, regarding ultimate causes. He concluded with his statement that, and I quote, "The existence of mind in some organism on some planet in the universe is surely a fact of fundamental significance. Through conscious beings, the universe has generated self-awareness. This can be no trivial detail, no minor product of mindless, purposeless forces. We're truly meant to be here." So, basically, he gets to a designer, the mind of the universe. This is helpful in an age when God is deemed to be dead. Long ago, Aristotle got beyond the gods of the myths to the prime mover, the pure act that moves the universe by the desire that it or he inspires. But of course, in Aristotle, as in Flew and Davies, the ultimate power is not one who loves us. At most, such a personal quality as this is absolutely in the background. I believe that, as a matter of fact, the notion of a loving creator who is holy and moral is in the background not only of very many philosophers, but of most religions. The classical religions did not feature gods who loved man with a powerful and tender love. Those gods lived their lives in the heavens, put up with man unless irritated, and at most assisted when pleased with man's attention. Basically, though, they were reflections of fallen man writ large. While man does have an instinctive sense that the power or powers above are good enough to be turned to for help, they are not seen as especially loving and considerate of human misery. Their power is limited, as is their mercy. This is the striking feature of historical revelation. God is a God of compassion and mercy, while being all holy. As we read in the book of Exodus, the Lord proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty. Chapter 34, verse 6 to 7. So God is loving and holy. He is compassionate and merciful to the lowly, abhorring sin nevertheless. There are many other things which divine revelation has brought to man about God, such as his almighty power, but his mercy and holiness have been especially surprising. The iconic picture of this is given to us by our Lord in his parable of the father of the prodigal son, a father who ran to his repentant son to welcome him home. All through history, this announcement of a God of mercy who has sent his Son to deliver man from the morass of sin has been the ringing element in the good news, but it has to be heard. This is where the lack of a sense of sin is so critical. It is one thing for society to be aware of wrongdoing and guilt and to punish it. It is a further thing to be aware of the seriousness of sin. Man offends God and needs his pardon and mercy. This is what is especially needful in the man and woman of our day, for we characteristically lack the sense of sin, lacking as we do a strong sense of the living God. If we lack it, we shall not be interested in a God of mercy. All of this brings us to our gospel today from Matthew chapter 9, verse 9 to 13, in which our Lord insists that God is a God of mercy for the afflicted, a God who expects that we be merciful too. There must have been something immensely attractive for the tax collectors and sinners about our Lord's holiness. They certainly felt themselves warmly welcomed and at ease in his company. There was no doubt in their hearts as to his holiness. That was the only reason why they were so interested in him, but it was a holiness that was so very compassionate and understanding, a holiness in which they felt loved, a holiness in the presence of which all misery, especially the misery of sin, felt consolation. The only proviso was that they recognized their sinfulness and aspired to something much better. In other words, the all-holy incarnate Son of God was rich in mercy. This is what preeminently he came to reveal, that God is rich in mercy.